Hey guys, and welcome back to the Aether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you another Magic the Gathering video. Today we have Chapter 3 of our official breakdown of the Zendikar Rising storyline. If you're behind in our videos, make sure you check out Chapter 2 or the entire playlist appearing on your screen now or linked in the description below. Last time, we followed as Nahiri formed her own group, a party of talented adventurers, to help her climb and traverse the dangers of the Murasa Skyclave, the place that houses the Lithoform Core, a device of unknown power she believes can heal the Royal of Zendikar, returning it to a safe and stable condition, of course at the cost of the world's very soul. We know that Nissa and Jace are now tracking Nahiri with the intent to stop her, but who will succeed? Let's find out in Chapter 3, The Dangerous Climb, The Long Fall. Remember to tick the notification bell so you never miss out when we release a new video. Nahiri and her company of adventurers begin their climb of the Murasa Skyclave, the place that held the key to restoring Zendikar to its former glory, a state Nahiri remembered well, long before the Eldrazi and long before the Royal, a state of calm and tranquility. Nahiri would bring that back to Zendikar. As she charged skywards, the true peril of this challenge presented itself. The Murasa Skyclave was tattered from its ascent, broken with island fragments no wider than her dotting the horizon. Nahiri did not hesitate. Her goal was so close, and her lithomancy proved worthy of this challenge. As they climbed, Nahiri almost forgot about her company covering the rear. She provided them with steps and footholds, but each had to depend on their own talents to make this climb. On several occasions, someone fell, only to be barely caught by Nahiri's quick reflexes, summoning loose rubble to form a quick stop to their descent. However, Akiri, the talented rope-slinging core and leader of their band, often was the one to rescue her companions. A well-timed and placed line from the core was literally the last line of defense for her friends, as Nahiri continued to charge headstrong into the unknown. Every so often, Nahiri would spot a floating hedron, one that she had made so many years ago. It brought back unsettling memories. Memories of her former friends, allies who betrayed her. She crafted these hedrons herself, thinking that they were the best chance Zendikar had against the Eldrazi Titans, with Ugin and Sorin both convincing her that they would always be there to help her and her world if needed. But that wasn't so. Now Zendikar ached with their betrayal, the scars of the Eldrazi. As she and her new allies finally reached the main ruins of the Murasa Skyclave, Nahiri was more determined than ever to finally make things right. In the crumbled ruins of Murasa, Nahiri senses a great importance, but also a great danger residing here. The rest of the group feels it too. Utterly without direction, the group turns to Nahiri, hoping that she could just read the stone and point them towards their prize. It wasn't that easy though. Nahiri tried again to tap into the power of the key she had claimed from Nissa, whose very power could turn elementals to dust and end the Royals. Its power also channeled in ancient magics long ago placed in these ruins by the core. And, with enough force and pressure, Nahiri created a glowing path. This key was leading them to, well, whatever that key unlocked. Kaza, the mage, was always looking for something to blow up. Akiri simply wanted everyone to keep their cool. Ura, the cleric, stood in wonder of an ancient people he didn't truly understand. But Zareth proved the most valuable in this leg of the journey. This fleet-footed and quiet rogue scouted the path ahead, disarming traps and leading the group through safely. And finally, they reached it. The antechamber, where an idol stood with a locking mechanism in the exact shape of the key Nahiri held. The planeswalker placed it in, and another door closed for millennia swung open. Their prize was waiting for them, wanting to be found. The object of Nahiri's desire hovered before her, as Zareth and Akiri joined her in the treasure room, with Kaza and Ura stationed outside. Akiri saw how Nahiri looked at this relic. A troubling glint filled her eyes, a sense of dread and malice encompassed Nahiri that Akiri hadn't really noticed before. She held tight to Zareth's hand. She was going to do something stupid, something crazy, but necessary. She didn't want this ancient relic in the hands of an ancient planeswalker. She was going to take the Lithoform Core for herself. With subtle footsteps, Akiri believed that she could pocket the relic quickly enough to avoid any traps or pitfalls, and perhaps even fast enough to dodge whatever attack Nahiri would surely retaliate with. But, as Akiri reached out, she was stopped. Nahiri had caught her overcommitted grasp. Nahiri would take this thing alone, giving Akiri her arm back, believing her ally was just overzealous. Akiri retreated, trying to hide her sense of failure. She rejoined Zereth and again squeezed his hand. They watched as Nahiri claimed her prize, a plain-looking object, no frail or endorments, but still crackling with power. Small hedrons rotated around it, bursting with magic. It may have appeared boring, but it commanded everyone's attention. As Nahiri plucked it from its hovering prison, there was a brief silence, and then a boom. The royal, the elemental force Nahiri looked to quell, had reacted to the loosening of this Lithoform Core, and whatever power it may control. The Skyclave was trembling as Nahiri and her party began to make their escape. Kaza and Aura were the first to fall victim to this tectonic activity. The Skyclave was falling apart around them, their footing was uprooted, and Akiri watched as her allies fell from the cliff's edge. In a panicked scream, Akiri watched with relief as Kaza used her magic staff to hover both her and Aura to safety. They had made it, but what about her and Zereth and Nahiri? Akiri had to focus all of her talents into attaching lines, connecting floating land masses, and repelling them all down as quickly as possible, lest the land above them buries them all. Nahiri's anger grew. She could sense the betrayal of yet more allies. Akiri's last grasp to control the Lithoform Core in the chamber, in the way that Zereth couldn't trust her. They weren't here for her, but out for themselves. This fear and paranoia boiled up as the royal, the constant reminder of her failure to Zendikar, was raging all around them. The winds were whipped up with unnatural speed and direction, threatening to knock them all from their precarious positions. With a blast, a vortex, almost living, appeared, throwing rubble and debris at the adventurers. Nahiri would not let the royal win. Using her anger, she used her lithomancy to subdue the winds of Zendikar. As they fall further and further down, Nahiri again meets up with her company, catching Zereth as they continue to use Akiri's ropes to get to safety. Nahiri whispers to the merfolk, "I know you want the core all to yourself," letting loose a fear Zereth had long suspected of her. She was mad. This core, it whispered to them all, but Nahiri, she felt it strongest of all. The core spoke to her. It was hers to command. Yes, Nahiri was indeed mad. Together they all three land in the center of a large scrap of the Murasa Skyclave, but something was wrong. The land had a force behind it, a heat under it. The royal was coursing through this floating island. Lava began to boil up to the surface. This wasn't good, as heat, rock, and energy coalesced into a frothing mass, an elemental. Nahiri looked on with disgust. This is what she was fighting to cure, the instability of a molten lava monster terrorizing Zendikar. Zereth, the rogue, the trickster, was the first to act. Trusted trident in hand, he arced magical energy at the monstrosity, merely a tickle to the royal. The merfolk huddled and braced as the molten fist of the elemental came crashing down, only to find that he wasn't incinerated or crushed. Akiri had come to her friend's aid, wielding a shield of magical light, deflecting the attack, but just barely. Watching on, Nahiri knew this magic wouldn't stop the next blow, so she stepped in and did what she does best, taunted the royal. Holding out the Lithoform Core, she goaded the elemental to charge her, leaving Akiri and Zereth to compose themselves. Nahiri had fashioned herself her own weapon made of molten rock, but it wouldn't be enough. It wasn't enough for the Eldrazi, and it certainly wouldn't be enough for this monster either. Again, the Lithoform Core spoke to her, whispered through her mind. It didn't say anything really, at least nothing that she could understand. But regardless, this wasn't the time for whispers, it was the time for action. She grabbed the core from her satchel, and with hardly any effort at all, she pulled on its power. Zereth at this point had gotten up and was charging towards her, towards Nahiri and not this elemental monster. He knew what she was planning, knew the power she looked to unleash, and watched in horror as Nahiri pulsed with that energy. A blast of light, and then silence. The royal had been stopped. Everything around them was ash and devoid of life or purpose. Nahiri had achieved her goal. This tranquility was only broken by Akiri's screams. Zereth, the longtime friend and companion of Akiri, lay there as solid and rigid as the rubble that surrounded them. The Lithoform Core had driven the life from his body, turning him to a statue, a visage of his former self. Even the brightness of his eyes, the color Akiri loved so much, was gone, drained by this strange power unearthed by a strange core woman. Nahiri walked over to them, not a shred of remorse in her steps or voice. While Akiri mourned, she focused on the core that had landed after its use near Zereth's body. Nahiri went for it, but Akiri was quicker. She now knew what Xerath feared, what the merfolk saw and distrusted about Nahiri since their first encounter. A ruthless, merciless determination and resolve. But what about Xerath's goals, his dreams? All this brought about was his end. Akiri demanded to know more about this power, about the core, answers Nahiri was reluctant to produce. Even without understanding, Akiri prepared to destroy the object, knowing no good could ever come from it, despite Nahiri's maddened pleas that it could heal Zendikar. This couldn't heal anything, only destroy. Akiri looked to drop the core from the Skyclave, ending this madness right here and now. But as she attempts to release her grasp, she's frozen, unable to move. Nahiri had tapped into the latent magic of a nearby hedron that floated just beyond the reach of Akiri's ropes. The energy rendered her muscles useless. She was alive, but unable to move. Her body betrayed her. Nahiri, seemingly without a worry in the world, walked over to the hopeless Akiri, plucked the core from her hands, and rendered her regards. Nahiri seemed remorseful. She genuinely didn't want to hurt anyone. But with the resolve of thousands of years of ancient grudges, Nahiri pushed Akiri from the Skyclave's edge. The famed line slinger had no escape, no rope or ability to save herself, as she fell through the unforgiving sky. And there you guys go, chapter 3 of our official dive into the story of Zendikar Rising. In summary, this is essentially the entire story of what took place during the Zendikar Rising trailer. These are the words behind that scene given form. Luckily, there was a little added context from the perspectives of Akiri and Xerath before their deaths, namely their realization of Nahiri's not so nice intentions and drive to heal Zendikar no matter the cost. And don't forget, we still have the wizard Kaza and the cleric Aura, who could still pop up in the story somewhere. Maybe they'll join with Nissa and Jace in their party to stop Nahiri. We can only wait and see how the story turns out. Remember, if you missed any of the chapters in our video summary of Zendikar Rising, you can check out the playlist in the description below right now. And of course, make sure you tick the notification bell so you don't miss out on our next installment of this story. As always guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave it a like, share it with friends, and leave a comment. It all goes to help supporting the channel and getting this video out to the community. Anyway, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!